I am Kelsey Gilbert Kreiling, she, her. I live in Chicago, Illinois, sometimes in slightly rural Wisconsin. And I am the co founder of a design agency called Week of the Website. We build websites for people primarily on Squarespace and focus on doing it in a really like joyful, collaborative, and efficient way. So, our core product, we build websites in a week. We've since expanded into using our week based sprint for larger projects, but have a really amazing team of about 15 people who help make it happen. And my fabulous founder, Mallory, who has been with me we've done it together for 9 years. We're thick as thieves. And recently, I have finished writing my first book, Squarespace from Sign Up to Launch. That'll be available this fall. And I got to know Zach working on my course, Better Than Launch Advanced Squarespace Tools through Super High. When I'm not doing all of that fun stuff, I have an almost 2-year-old little boy who I love to spend as much time with as possible. So that's, I think, me in a nutshell these days.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you for going over so many different areas. I was going to ask about a lot of different things, and you were like, I got it. All right,
Ugh,
podcast over.
too many things. Yep, this has been great. This has
Thanks
been
for
really
joining
nice.
me. Yeah. You mentioned that your agency is focused around joyfulness is one of the words you use to describe it. Can you talk a little bit more about how you arrived at joyfulness and how do you build that into your work?
Yeah. So before I started the agency, my business partner and I both came from really different backgrounds. So my degree is in fashion design. I was working for a restaurant group. So when I was in college, I studied fashion design. So I was making clothes. But I got an internship with a fashion blog and then ended up being a fashion blogger and then eventually starting my own publication. And from there went to traditional agency when I was ready to stop freelancing after college because it was really hard. And then ended up working for a hospitality group running this food publication. So I kind of made my way from design into hospitality, into journalism, and I started just building websites for the hospitality group that I worked for because they just didn't have anyone else who did it. And it was like working for our restaurant group. There were a lot of things about it that were fun, but also very challenging. That's a hard environment to work in. It's not the most it doesn't tend to be a collection of the most stable personalities. And so when Mallory came along, she says that she tricked me into going into business with her. I was very eager to do it, but we both really wanted to create a space that felt like it could support the kind of life we wanted to live. And at the time, there's a lot of conversation around startup versus, oh, it's a lifestyle company. And we always joked, heck yeah, I want a lifestyle. That sounds great. like she came from retail. She owned a bunch of boutiques in Chicago. And that's also a really stressful and challenging environment. So when we started out, we were building websites in the traditional model, right? You do a static mock-up, get multiple rounds of client approval, and then you go to building it. And just found a lot of friction in that process and found that people were just getting frustrated. And then as the time went on, I was doing more and more sales calls, and the stuff that we were hearing from people of how they were treated by the companies that they worked for or worked with to build them their websites, it just really bothered us. And what happened is we realized that we had built a way of working that was very centered around creating joy for our clients and for the people that we work with unintentionally, because that is just that is just something that Mallory and I highly value and want to articulate to the world. Only when we went through and did our kind of positioning review about a year and a half ago did we identify that joy was one of our values as a company, right? It's something that we decided to stop just doing and tell people that was important to us instead of just having it be a part of what we do. And I think there's something about the way our team has come together that they're such good people and they're such good designers that they really care about what the client is experiencing, not just the design that they're building. So that's a long answer to your question, but I think it like takes you on the path, right? Of it matters to Mallory and I that everyone involved in a project feels good about it at the end because that is how you move forward with confidence. And so we've really tried to build a business that amplifies that. Like we're on a 4-week streak of clients crying happy tears the first time they see their design. And I'm
Wow.
like, let's keep it going.
Let's make them cry.
Yeah, but in a good way.
Yeah.
And to me, I think that's just like the highest compliment because it means they're not crying because they really like the way that we've chosen their colors or they really love that section we've built for them.
Right.
They're having that emotional experience because they feel heard. And I think that is the root of joy in our company. That is like joy is how we describe this value of listening.
How long was this journey? You said you're at 15 people. Like, when did your agency start? When was that meeting and bringing together of you and Mallory's idea to solve this problem to now?
Yeah. 2014 we started. So we just had our 9-year birthday last month.
Congratulations.
Thank you. She is living in Mexico City right now. So we have not had a chance to celebrate properly together. But later this summer, we are going to the Squarespace Developer Conference in New York and planning a really fun Korean barbecue and karaoke night with our team and other Squarespace people.
How did you pick Squarespace for this? And
Yeah.
though you mentioned that you do it in a week, is that to differentiate from competitors?
So why Squarespace? Squarespace sits at this really cool intersection of design customization and out of the box usability. So we actually built the week of the website process specifically for restaurants and hospitality groups because we knew that when you're opening a new restaurant, you usually leave about -2 weeks to build the website when the restaurant's done. And at the time, I was this jack of all trades for restaurant groups. Like I was working with them, helping them with their investment decks and laying those out. And I was helping them get websites set up and had this real clear understanding of these are people who don't have a lot of time. They have spent a lot of money on a really gorgeous space, and it's hard for them to wrap their heads around how much time and money they can or should spend on a website. And they're also people who are going to be needing to use their website very actively for their business, but they're also not going to be people who are going to keep a developer on staff. And it's probably going to be like a host who updates the menu. I hosted at a restaurant in Chicago for years. I loved it. It was like one of the best managerial experiences of my life. I'll grouse about it for days because my manager was incredible, but I would go in and update the menu. We created Week of the Website specifically for restaurants and bars because we were like, this is perfect. We can solve this huge problem for them. They can get the restaurant almost ready to open while they're waiting for their payments to come through, while they're putting the final touches on. They can take a week to build their website. It's going to cost exactly what they have allocated for it in their investment proposals. So we put together this process. And then hilariously, none of our first clients were restaurants. And we came to this because so we started our company Presence Agency was the original name. And for about a year and a half, were doing we were just like building websites in that more traditional model, right? Static, review, build, test, launch. And also I was like just not having a lot of fun. It felt like things were just taking a really long time. People were losing momentum. And in 2016, I think, was the first time we like tested the week of the website process. And it really hasn't changed that much since. And we actually just built another website for the first person we ever tested it
Oh,
with,
amazing.
like earlier this year. So It's funny, we came to this process niched into a really specific industry in a really specific space because at that time, like, niching was super popular, and then found that all of the problems that we were solving for this specific industry are things that really anyone creating a new project has experienced. So, I used to say that we built people's first websites. Now, 9 years later, my company has evolved, our pricing has gone up, our team's talent has skyrocketed, the platform has evolved, everything's changed. So now I say we build people's second
Mm.
websites. So after people have DIY'd their first, they come to us and go, "I really like my site, but I just want to feel like a professional did it." And that's our most fun client because they know what it takes to get to that place and they're ready to like partner with someone else to help their vision to come to life. And so Squarespace really helps power that because it is such a usable tool. And I can train anyone to hop on and trade out a menu in 15 minutes. I can teach someone how to write a blog post very quickly. That's the two sides of that is it's got that good intersection between design and usability. And we came to it solving for a really specific problem and then found it was actually a much broader issue for a lot of people.
So you mentioned that you can train people on how to use different parts of Squarespace. You wrote a book, which we will get to. Don't worry, I have lots of questions there. And you're working on an online experience to teach Squarespace,
Yes.
which we will also get to because we've got lots to say
Yes.
about that. But
Yes.
I have to imagine that over the years, over 9 years, and now 15 employees, that your role in the process has changed. Were you the person building the websites, and now what's your day to day like now?
Yeah. So I built the bulk of the websites for probably, let's say at this point, 6.5 years. And eventually we realized that our growth as an agency was a bit stymied by the fact that I am one person who has to at some point sleep. Yeah, for a long time, it was me and Mal. She project managed everything, I built, and then eventually we kind of tiptoed into the space of having other folks work with us. I'm pretty sure we had our first, like, contractor was a project manager who is now our operations manager, Katie. We were hosting this weekly coffee talk at it was like a networking hangout session every week at the Ace Hotel in Chicago. And we'd have 20 people show up and we would just talk about different topics, have different speakers in. It was like a really special thing. But Katie is the partner of someone who was a longtime friend of mine. And she had just had her son Dom, and she came one time and we were going around introducing ourselves. And she was like, "I'm Katie. I'm a freelance project manager." Because she had gotten laid off while she was on mat leave and was trying to figure out what happened next. And I just remember Mallory and I looking at each other like, that we need that. That kind of helped us crack our like little internal bubble of two open a little bit to invite other people in. And eventually, we started taking on other developers, project managers, but because we have a very codified process, there was a lot of, okay, we have to sit down and we have to write down everything we do so we can train people on this. The first business book that my dad ever gave me is called The E-Myth, and it is about building a business that can be franchisable. I do not aspire to be franchisable, but I think one of the most interesting and useful parts of that book is that you have to build your business as if you are someday not going to be the person doing the thing. If you like baking pies, just bake pies. But if you want to build a pie company, you have to be comfortable building it in such a way that you could run it without being the person who touches dough ever again. I don't know that I was in that mindset until the last couple of years. I was still building websites. I'm gonna try really hard not to get emotional because this is like a very intense part of my career transition. I was still building websites while I was pregnant with my son, and I had some complications. I went into labor a month early, and so we build websites on a week model, kicked off the site on Monday, great. Showed her the first version of the site on Tuesday, loved it, got some feedback, got some notes, was gonna keep building, and then Wednesday morning, I woke up and had to go into the hospital and have my son, so I had to put that project down halfway through. Luckily, it was a really good friend of ours and a teammate who we were doing, like, a little bit of trade, but it was the perfect client to have to step away on from because she totally understood. And that was, like, it. That was the last time that I fully was the developer on a site, and it threw our business into a little bit of a tailspin because we just had a bad luck month. We had a couple of projects cancel, and then we had to bring on a bunch of people to cover my work because I was still doing, like, a ton of the support work. I was doing a lot more than I probably should have. But I was also like, "I still have a month. I'm gonna wrap everything up, and then I'm gonna take a little bit of time off to be home with my baby, and then I'll get right back to it." None of that went the way I expected it to. I had my son. I had pretty bad postpartum, but we also were in crisis as a company, so I ended up coming back to work, like, very quickly after. I think of that time period as being, like, probably one of the hardest, darkest times because I was so without a ballast, like, I didn't know I had a baby earlier than I expected to. He was very tiny. I was shell shocked from all of it. And then I didn't know how to move forward with my career. Like, I was very comfortable doing sales calls. So I did a lot of that in the early days that I was coming back to work. And thank God, like, my business partner she's my best friend. We're very close. And at some point, she had to sit down and rewrite the org chart to not include me as someone who built websites anymore. Already, I was at that point probably building like 25% of our websites over any given time period, but we had to reduce that to 0. We had to completely retool our margins to no longer include me being, like, free, essentially. When we built websites, we had to totally change our pricing model. So it was a cluster, Zach. Like, it was so hard. But Mal sat down and "Listen, you like people. You like to talk to people. You love hearing about people's projects. You know everything that we need to know to scope projects. You're in charge of biz dev now, and I'm in charge of marketing. You will still head up the kind of development vertical. I will still be the top of the project management kind of food chain, but this is how it has to be." And I was still sleepwalking, not in my right head, right? But I was just like, "Okay, sure." And at the time, I was scared. I was like, "I don't know how to do this. I don't have a background in sales." Like, my calls with clients are just a matter of me hearing if we're a good fit for them or not, because we turn away tons of projects that aren't a fit for our process because we just have to.
Right.
So that's what I am good at doing, but I don't know how to run biz dev. And now I think it's honestly, like, one of the best things that I've ever done because I get to grow the team. I found that, like, creative nurturing is something that I absolutely love, and I still get to hop in on fun projects. If we have someone who's, like, a celebrity or, like, a well-known person or whatever, like, I'll be in on those to give him that, like, high touch experience. But yeah, it was a seismic shift, even though in my head, I had prepared to build a business that sells pies, right? I still could not I did not know how to give up being hands-on until I was, like, absolutely forced to. And now it's the best thing that's, I think, happened to my career.
It sounds like an incredibly difficult personal and professional time. You're really selling the concept of having a business partner so that you have somebody to be there and help. And I'm so glad that you had the support there. You mentioned creative nurturing, and I think like it leads really well into me asking you about your book because for me at least, like teaching, writing is a form of teaching when you're sharing it is like a version of that creative nurturing.
Yeah.
What was the moment that you were like, "Hey, I want to write a book," and what was that process like? And
Yeah.
I also think, just sorry, I asked 3 questions at once. Maybe you could tease a little bit, like, what's a tip from your book that will make people wanna read it?
I love to read. I love books. I have always that has been like I got busted for reading under the covers at night all the time. I have such strong memories of figuring out how to prop a book exactly underneath my little desk while I was in school so I could look like I was paying attention to math, but actually was reading. So it has always been like a life accomplishment bucket list dream to write a book. I'm going to be totally straight with you right now, Zach. It has never been my bucket list goal to write a book about Squarespace. Like, I am not necessarily the kind of like, I learn by doing. I wouldn't necessarily read a book about Squarespace to learn it. So, the publishing company actually reached out to me via LinkedIn, and they were like, "Hey, our community has asked for a book about Squarespace. You seem to know quite a bit about it, running an agency and having built on the platform for many years. Is this something that you would be interested in, like, writing a proposal for?" And I feel not ashamed of this, but I feel a little silly about it in retrospect because I immediately, like, not immediately, I thought about it, but I tweeted, like, a poll that was like, "Hey, if you got the opportunity to write a book, it would be really hard and it would take a lot of time, and the topic doesn't, like, really blow your hair back, but you will have written a book. Would you do it?" And so that was, like, the way I went into this, was, like, not it was this sense of this would be really cool as a concept. I don't know how excited I am about the specifics, but let's see. Honestly, exactly the same way I felt about parenting and potentially having a baby. I was just like, the theory of this, everything people have said about it, the outcome is good. I just don't know how in for the journey I am. And I forget who gave me this advice, and I wish I could remember so I could credit them forever, but someone was like, "You should just write the proposal and see if they even wanna buy the book." Like, you might be making the decision before they do, and so just they might make it for you. So just write the proposal, it's good practice. And I was like, "Alright, sure." It was around the holidays, things were a little bit quieter, so I was just like, I'll just do it." So, put it together, and as I was going through the outline, found myself being like, "Oh, wait, I am excited about this. Like, I do like this. I love telling people about this stuff, and I like giving them the information they need to be empowered in telling the world about their work, their business, their clients, whatever it is that they do." So then as I wrote the outline, then I was like, "Oh, I really hope they want me to do this because I will be very sad if I don't get to write this." And I actually remember thinking, even if they don't want it, I will either go pitch it to another technical publisher or think about doing it on my own. Thank God they ended up taking it because there's no way I would have gotten this done on my own, Zach. Like, there's no universe in which if I were not such a people-pleasing individual, I would have met these deadlines because it has been really hard. It's been really hard. I have written nights, I have written weekends, but I think it unlocked this part of me that I really needed to find again, which was a path to creative expression that, like, really focuses in on creative generosity. I loved that part of building sites for clients. I really loved when they would try to, like, articulate to me what they wanted, and I could hear them go, "I want a squiggly thing, and I also really want it to feel, like, homey, and I want it to zoom in on me, but not for real." I'd be like, "Okay, I got you. Right? I've got this. I can hear what you're saying and I can turn it into something real. I was missing that for the last couple of years. And something about working on this book, taking time for myself, usually in the evenings, learning how to let my son hang out with other people so that I could write, and then also letting my partner lean into being our primary caregiver while I did this. It has helped me, I don't wanna say fix something, but I'll say it helped me grow a counterbalance to this, like, really difficult time of giving up the building part, and I feel like myself again for the first time in years. So, I think that's about 8 answers to your 3
I love
questions.
it.
But it's been, like, such a journey. Now, I feel like if you were talking to me 2 weeks ago, I'd be like, "I hate this. I'm miserable. Why did I do this? This is the worst." But I did turn in my last chapter's first draft 2 days ago, and now I think I'm on that, "Oh my god, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I've written a 400 some odd page book." And I needed to see if I could do it still.
Thank you so much for all those wonderful details. I have 2 follow-up questions. One
Yeah,
is you mentioned being such an avid reader even before writing a
yeah,
book. If you could
yeah.
recommend one book for everyone to read, what would it be?
Oh, man. Okay, I'm sitting in my office right now, and I have some books in front of me, which thank God, because otherwise I would have gone totally blank. The book that I remember, I read a lot of fiction. That is to me like the ultimate escape. The book that I remember I gave up sleep for is called The Great Believers by Rebecca Mackay. She is actually a writer from Chicago, and it is a story of a friend group during the AIDS crisis in the 80s in Chicago. And it is such an amazing exploration of the joy and love in the queer community in Chicago and in the country at that time, while also being like a very intimate look at this really challenging experience for people. So I love it. She's a really great writer. I'll stop there because otherwise I'm just going to start listing books. But that was the first one that's the one I remember staying up late being like, I'm not sleeping till I finish this.
I appreciate the one recommendation. No, it sounds really good. I'm going to read that. The other question, as hard as it is, I apologize in advance. I love to hit an existential crisis during every episode. What do you feel about AI building websites? Because you mentioned that detail of someone being like, I want it to feel like home and zoomed in, but not. I think that's where we stand apart from AI. Is like a lot of our clients don't know how to describe what they want well enough for AI to know what they mean anyway. I
Yeah.
actually feel quite safe at this moment just based on the prompt culture that has to evolve. But
Yeah.
how do you feel about it? Are you worried that Squarespace is going to do what Framer just did and do like an AI based get started moment?
I don't worry about Squarespace doing it because it doesn't m I could be wrong. I'm gonna signpost this by saying I could be wrong in 5 years. It's fine if I am. Everyone around me has probably tired of my AI metaphor, but I'm gonna just tell you how I think about AI. I think AI is for creativity what the microwave is for cooking. You can do a lot of things with a microwave. A microwave can make many tasks of your day easier. People in the UK will hate me for saying this. You can make hot water for tea in a microwave really fast, right? You can make oatmeal. You can make lots of things. You can microwave meals that are preheated. You can do a ton with it, right? But the reality is that the culinary achievements of a microwave have basically plateaued at mug cake. Like, you can make a cake in a mug, and that's cool. If you're someone who would never make a cake, making it in a mug in your microwave, I'm so happy for you. But, like, Thomas Keller and Samin Nosrat and all of these incredible people who push food forward, they probably use a microwave sometimes, but it doesn't change the fact that they are bringing something truly unique and human and valuable to the craft that they know and understand very well. I do not think that AI is ever going to be able to listen to a client say, we have a client right now whose brand is called Crunchy Bread Culture Studio. And it is inspired by her and her dad's shared love of Italian bread. And in particular, this really specific alchemy between bread that has like a crunchy outer crust and a soft, perfect middle. Please tell me how AI will ever interpret that for her.
Right.
Like, there's no way. The other thing is, I recently learned that AI, if it trains on AI based content, it basically collapses in on itself and can't function anymore. And so there has to be an act of human creation at some point that will always be valuable. I think that AI will make things accessible to people in ways that they weren't before. I think it is hard for some people who hold design and technical ability as something that they are keeping for themselves. I think this is probably a really challenging time for them. But if, like me or my team, you believe that we're not here to sit in a position of power, we are here to sit in a position of like guidance and support, then I don't feel at risk. In the same way that I feel really comfortable writing an entire book and recording an entire course teaching people how to do what I do, how to do what my company does. Because at some point, someone's going to maybe become empowered to be the next week of the website. And that's great. My life has been changed by running this business. Good for them. Like, more good into the universe is good. But maybe someone else is going to be able to get something off the ground that they never thought they could before. And then they want to come and hire someone who's really talented. They would have never done that before if they didn't know how to start on their own. So I think I take the long view of teaching creativity, teaching technical ability, and even things like AI, because if it can lead to more people having the opportunities that I've had as a business owner, as someone in technology, as a woman, whatever, I don't know, that's net good. Yes, robots, if you're listening to this, I am your friend and I would like to be your friend forever. But also, even if Squarespace came up with an AI tool, they have something that's like it. They have AI generated text in certain areas. And they actually have this really cool new tool called Squarespace Blueprint,
Hmm.
where you can go through and like pick from a menu to build your own template, which is cool. And I think that's great. It just doesn't, it's different than what I do.
I think that at least the websites that I've seen that are AI generated right now, it's the new template. Like a template was the idea of not
Yeah.
starting with the blank canvas. It
Yes.
gave you a higher starting place. I think like
Yes.
the AI generated websites are a great starting place for somebody to build their
Yeah.
website.
Yeah. And for some people, like, that's all they can do. That's all they can afford. And that's okay. There's space for all of it. And if there's not, if we get to a point where there's not space for all of it, then I have to do something different. Then I have to figure out what comes next. I am like such an early adopter of things that I think are like on the whole pretty good. It doesn't help anyone to look backward. It doesn't help to cling to things that may or may not be there anymore. And I think this is part of it, that it's, if we can figure out how to use this as a tool, use it as a microwave, give it its proper place, and then figure out how to use creativity in the most useful way possible. Great. Cool. But I like that. I think that's a great example too. It replaces a template, or templates get smarter. Like,
Hopefully.
yeah, like it people get better templates. Good for them.
I want to talk about Super High. So
Yeah.
you and I met each other because we're both in the very first cohort of Super High Plus, which is
Yes.
a great idea. I think to summarize it, I think my description of it usually takes a couple of minutes, but it's an incubator for industry professionals to make online learning experiences with a group of peers also building courses. So
Yeah.
we have that support, the support of the experts at Super High that have made courses. And also, like, they deal with a lot of the like platform stuff so that you don't have to worry about that. And that's how we met. And
Yeah.
I love that. And the cohort has been amazing. The people I keep meeting are incredible. Maybe you could talk a little bit about your experience with it and what is your course about?
Well, let's just record long so we can talk about how great it is for hours. So, my course is called Better Than Launched Advanced Squarespace Tools. I found in the course of writing the book, it's so hard to write a book about something technical because it's very like, how long is a piece of string? It's like I could go on for 1,000 pages explaining all the nuance to you. And I still wouldn't be able to articulate it nearly as well as if I just demoed it for you on a video. So I had approached the publisher and I was like, "Hey, I know you do video courses for some of your books. Can I turn this into a video course when I'm done?" And they're like, Not really interested." And I was like, "Okay, you're wrong, but that's fine." And I was like, "I'll figure out another way to do this. I'll make a bunch of videos and I'll put them on a companion site." And then Max from Super High is also of the Squarespace world. I actually interviewed Max to be a project manager for me years ago before he went into community. And I was like, "Max, I'm having the best time ever with you on this interview, but do you actually want to do this?" And he's like, "I don't know." And I was like, "All right, dude, we're going to stay each other's orbit, but it doesn't seem like this is the kind of work that you would be really fed by. So let's put a pin in this conversation and see what happens next." And of course, now he's killing it. He's doing exactly what he's meant to do. I had nothing to do with that. I just didn't hire him. But I was chatting with Max because I actually was interviewing him as an expert on community for my book in a chapter about building membership areas. And I had seen the email come through about Plus, and I was just like, "Oh, by the way, like I try really hard, like, when I'm talking to people to know what they have going on in their world and to connect with it." So I was like, "Hey, by the way, congrats, like, the Super High Plus cohort looks super cool. That'll be really exciting for you all." And he was like, "Are you gonna apply?" And I just laughed. I was like, "No, no, I have a company and I'm writing a book and I have a baby. There's no way I'm gonna do this." And he's like, "Shoot your shot." And I was like, "Okay, I don't know." So I sat with it and then I looked into it, I read more of it, and I was like, "God, I really do wanna do a course for this. I really want to take the next steps to tell people not just how to set up an e-commerce store, but how to design one. I wanna show them how to use all the cool tips and tricks that are there. I wanna go into the stuff that doesn't get covered in some of these courses that people are building on their own because they just can't justify the time. Like, it's a really different equation to build something that for yourself that you then have to do all of the marketing for, you have to write all the support, you have to do all of I would have never done this on my own, never in 100 years, like, done the course the way that I've done it in this way. And so, had a great conversation with Lou. Lou is like Louise Bishop, who is I feel like I'm the one of the baby ducklings behind her, is she's our kind of mentor, and she and I chatted and we really connected, and she's like, "I think our community would like this. I think this would help people who are building other things learn how to make a portfolio for themselves." If you are like if you're a dev and you're doing all back end stuff, yeah, you could spend a bunch of time building your own site, but you could also just throw up your contact information on a Squarespace site and call it good. Keep it moving. I kept having conversations with them, and then I realized I just was so excited by the idea of this, and it turned out that the timing of the two was really good and they just meshed really well. So I ended up naming them in partnership with each other, right? So you've got Squarespace from sign up to launch. And then you've got Better Than Launched Advanced Squarespace Tools. So it's the book is the 101 and the course is the 201. And it's been so fun. I've learned so much stuff. The group of people in our cohort, though, like Zach, I have a message to Lou after our first meeting. And I was traveling at the time. I was like in a car driving around Ireland. And I just was like, I'm so intimidated. I don't know how I'm going to move forward in this course or in this cohort because I feel so intimidated by the group of people in here because everyone is so good at what they do. And Lou was a sweetheart because I was like, "I know you're not here to be my therapist, but I don't know if I can do this. I'm really scared."
Yep.
And she was like, "You're here for a reason, you know that." But I was, like, in a pretty low spot at that time. I was just like, "I don't know what I do anymore, like, I don't know where I am." And, it's just ended up being the most special group of people, building such cool courses. I can't wait to do them all. I wanna learn how to animate things, and I wanna learn a little bit more about back-end stuff, and I'm, like, after doing my own commerce stuff, I wanna dive into Kevin's and learn about headless CMS. Like, I'm so excited for what everyone has made, and Lou and Par, who have been leading the group, are just they're just phenomenal, so it's been a great experience.
Keep finding myself doing a thing that you just did, where you go to talk about your own course that you're working on and start advertising the courses of everybody else in our cohort as well. And I keep
I
doing
know.
this. I keep doing this. Just, oh, like I'm doing a course, but you should check out this other course.
Yes, I think it's, like it's more comfortable because it's hard to talk about your own work.
Hmm.
I don't know about you. I also feel like when you're in it, like we're I don't know how far along you are with things at this point, Zach, but I'm like solidly halfway through. And then I had to take a beat to finish the book up. And then I'm this week and next week going to be recording a whole bunch more. But I think when you're in the process of still making, it's hard to feel confident being like, look at this thing I made
Yeah.
because it's still in like process. And our team is, I think that is something that like our team is getting a great design education because they're showing unfinished work to clients every day, right? Like on Tuesday morning, they're showing an unfinished version of the site to the client and they're getting feedback. So they have to come like very bravely to every engagement, willing to show unfinished work. And I'm a little out of habit on that, I think. But yeah, it's been really special. And the best part is, and I don't know how you feel about this, Zach. Part of it is that you have a stipend to support you materially making the course. There is no way I could have done this without that.
Yeah.
Because for me, time wise, there is no way I could have done this without working with other people. So, like, I had someone make my brand for me, Alex Lucky, who's on my team. She's incredible. And that has given me the confidence to just teach the course without worrying about how I look while I'm doing it, right? I have worked with our video editor, Raina, who edits our podcast videos, to edit mine because I just don't have the time in the day to do it. So I feel like I've been very liberal in my use of those funds to power the execution of this project. And so I think that's the other secret hack is if my course looks good, it's because I worked with really good people to help me make it happen. If my videos look cool, it's because I worked with someone to help me do that. And it gives me confidence to be like, I will teach you about Squarespace and it will look good and you will be able to watch the videos because I'm working with talented people. And that's the other part of this cohort too is like you and I have been able to give each other feedback on our courses. I know that Zach is it can confidently look at the world and say, "Oh, this is a great course on Squarespace. If you're going to learn something here, you should do it. If you're going to learn something on this topic, you should learn it from Kelsey." I trust my peers so much and I trust their abilities, I trust their taste that, like, if they say it's good, great. I can put my little, like, own fears away because I trust the people in my circle more than I trust my, like, internal critical voice, and that's been the best part of this cohort is I'm not sending anything out that other people haven't looked at and said, "Yeah, this is good," or, "This could be improved."
Kelsey, thank you. That was such a great way to wrap up this episode. I would love it to focus on you for a moment. Let's go through where can people find your agency, what social
Yeah.
platforms, your book, where can they find that when it comes out, and
Yeah.
where will you be launching your course? All of these things.
Okay, I'm gonna do this backwards. The course will be launched on Super High. You can sign up for the Super High Unlimited membership to have access to my course and everyone else in the cohort, which is great. I have built a website, kelseygk.com, that is the home for both the book and the course information. You can pre order or order the book from the site there. And you can sign up for my little baby new Substack where I'm going to talk a little bit about the process of both of these things and then eventually a little bit more about just being a content creator and an agency owner. So kelseygk.com and by Kelsey GK on a bunch of social channels. And then weekthewebsite.com is my agency. And there's so much fun stuff there. We have our own podcast that we do, and you can see past work from the company there. I think that's it. Yeah, those are the three areas. Weekthewebsite.com, kelseygk.com, and then Super High Unlimited.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is such a joy. It's such a delight and just the most fun.